Today we're visiting two large subtropical ravine gardens in Cornwall in the southwest of England, Trebah and Glendurgan. These are two of my most favourite gardens in all of England. They're both about 25 acres and located virtually side by side about 11 kilometres southwest of Falmouth. They both stretch down in a narrow strip to the Halford River, which empties into the English Channel. The view you're looking at here is from the top of the garden looking south. The ocean is right at the bottom. We'll get there soon. Now, being on ravines, both gardens have steep sides, and on these banks have been planted a grand assortment of trees: towering windmill palms, tender Tasmanian tree ferns, copper beeches. You can see a huge one right there. Liriodendrons, oaks, chestnuts, well, you name it, as well as agaves and yuccas and scores of rhododendrons. Some of them today, because they've matured and they've been there so long, are as tall as trees. Both gardens were built by members of the wealthy Fox family. These were devout Quakers and avid botanists. The gardens were built around 1820. Charles Fox built Trebah, and his brother Alfred built Glendurgan, and they had another brother, Robert, who built a much smaller garden called Pengerrick just up the road. When I was last at Trebah in 2010, when I entered the garden, the very first thing I saw were these massive and lovely agaves and yuccas up on this hillside. They were there with some other tender succulents and some sedums, but very quickly I moved along and found this lovely planting of candelabra primulas. They looked absolutely gorgeous in the dappled light, and we stood there for a long time enjoying their colour and moved on eventually down this narrow path, and you keep walking down the garden past the Tasmanian tree ferns and other wonderful things, and eventually you come to where rhododendrons are in full bloom in a little opening. Now, some of these rhodos are very colourful and they compete with each other quite aggressively, and some people think maybe too aggressively. There's a little clash, like you see these yellows and oranges and whites competing for dominance. But there are other quieter areas in the garden. Trebah has also many serene, green, restful areas, and the rhodos mostly are played in a woodland setting, and it's very appropriate and pretty, very serene. When you walk in the gardens at Trebah and Glendurgan, you can still feel the friendly rivalry that existed between Robert and Alfred to outdo each other botanically. They were rivals. They both wanted to create a picture of, or a vision of, heaven on earth. That was their goal. Now, in the centre of the garden on the valley floor, there is a forest of gunnera. Not just one gunnera, but dozens of gunnera planted to create a jungle of foliage. It's really quite spectacular. I've not seen anything like it anywhere in the world. There's the rain showing you the size of the leaves, and you can walk in this gunnera forest, as I call it, or this gunnera jungle, and really get lost. It's so huge. Trebah is very good at doing mass planting. Now, up on the higher levels, there are very pleasant, quiet sitting spots where you can get a good overview of the whole garden, as well as glimpse views of the ocean. At the very bottom of the garden, there's Polgwyddan Beach. This is where troops boarded ships for the D-Day invasion of Normandy in 1944. It's a very sad but also beautiful place. And now we move over to the garden next door, Glendurgan. It's a very similar garden, the same sort of size. The difference is that Alfred Fox and his wife Sarah had 12 children, and they wanted this garden to be a little more playful. You still walk into the garden down very narrow paths, past beautiful banks, this time full of columbines and beautiful bluebell woods. It's a really exquisite garden, but look at that bluebell wood, absolutely gorgeous. But what people come to this garden to see, what they mostly come to see, is the maze that's been created out of laurel. At the centre of the maze is a tiki hut, schoolhouse they call it, I think, or school hut. It's used for teaching, and it's also a wonderful maze though. You can get lost in this and you can play around trying to find each other. You get an idea of the elevation of the garden in this picture. You see the people up on the hill. It gives you an idea of these beautiful elevations that give the garden such character. And like Trebah, Glendurgan has lots of tropical overtones, bamboo jungles, this mass planting of regersea, banana trees, Tasmanian tree ferns, windmill ponds, gunnera. It's a wonderful place to visit, and you get two for the price of one, both spectacular gardens. So I hope you've enjoyed your time today. It's been very short, I know, but come back and we'll go and look around some more gardens.